right, so we're gonna get started with glacier travel. I just rode down here in an unair conditioned car at 100 degrees. And it's like about snow.
Thanks to you, man.
So, let's go back 2 weeks ago, and some of us were up on Shasta, and we were looking at glaciers. So it kind of seems weird to talk about this, even though it's in summertime, but we're heading out to glaciers. A bunch of different expeditions are heading out to glaciers this year. And oh, is it? Okay, that's fine. So we're going to Canada, we're going to Europe, going to the Grand Teton, Wyoming, other places. Just show of hands through who's here tonight. How many of you are going to be on a glacier or plan to be in the next 12 months, next year? Almost everybody. Okay, let's do a little round. Where? Rainier.
And we might go to Shasta again.
Rainier. Wow, Rainier's the winner.
Yep.
Anything other than Rainier over here?
Illimani,
Where?
Bolivia.
Oh, wow. Okay, awesome. And Mount Blanc. Okay. Cool. Okay, well, let's see what we can do. Scott, if I stand on this side, am I still okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, what is glacier? It's a living river of ice, frozen. So it behaves just like a river of water. All the same dynamic characteristics, just super duper slow. It deforms as it moves down the mountain and pushes rock in front of it. And because it's both kind of a solid and a liquid in a sense, it stretches and cracks and deforms, okay? So 3 of them that are our favorites are the Whitney Glacier, not on Whitney. What mountain is that on? Right. Would only be fair if there was a Shasta Glacier on Whitney. Sorry. Then the Hotlum, which is this glacier here, we were practicing on 2 weeks ago. On Shasta also. Where is the Palisade Glacier? Which is where? Anybody know?
Bishop.
Yeah, it's kind of south of Bishop and the High Sierra. So the Hotlum is the most fractured, the Whitney is the longest, and the Palisade is the biggest in California. So that's their distinctions. All of them are cool. The Hotlum is the most crevassed. So if you want to see a nice show, go there. Let's head out. Okay, so if we're looking at different parts of the glacier, I'll show you a picture here in a second, but essentially how it works is up in this zone, there's all of the snowfall exceeds the snow melt, okay? Down in this zone, snow melt exceeds snowfall. In between those two is what's called the Föhn line. The glacier is like a huge icy bulldozer, so it pushes all of this rock and snow out in front of it as it comes down the mountain. And at its snout or its terminus, there's usually some outwash, streams and things that come out the bottom. Occasionally old planes and parts of people, things like that, depending on what is digested during its lifetime. Okay, and they change throughout the year, of course. So what would you expect a glacier in fall to look like? Anybody?
I see.
Yeah, because there hasn't been snow in a while.
Yeah, and
That's
you
right.
see more of what's underneath, like
Yeah.
crevasses and stuff.
That's right. The crevasses are going to be very visible. How about in winter?
Probably
Take a
won't
wild
go
guess.
over there.
It's going to be snowy.
Yeah.
Right. However, early in winter, the crevasses are going to be poorly bridged. So that's a bad time to go. How about in spring? It's getting warmer.
Lots of ice
Still
right
snow.
now.
Still some snow, but it's going to be firmer, right? And then in summer, what has made it through spring will continue to melt, and snow bridges will start collapsing, and crevasses will start showing up. So let's go to the next one, Scott. So here is an actual glacier somewhere in Europe. Credits to this person. This is called a cirque, where all of the glacier peels away the mountain and makes a bowl-shaped cistern, essentially, and it spills out of there. You can see really distinctly the difference between the accumulation zone here and the ablation zone here. So this is very icy. This is much more snow-covered, but there are crevasses in both. It's just a matter of which are easier to find and detect. And then all of this gray stuff here, that's all the moraine that's pushing down as it comes down the mountain. These are also glaciers, but they're much steeper. Some of them are hanging on the side of the mountain, like this one here. This would be a hanging glacier. See how this is going to just break off and fall down? So there are glaciers like that on Rainier and lots of other big mountains where they've been steeply eroded over the years. So they come in all shapes and types. There's some that are cover entire continental shelves like Antarctica. There's others that are just remnants of their former glory, like a lot. There's hundreds of those in California that are really tiny and don't even have crevasses anymore. And there's some that are growing. Did you know that there's glaciers that are growing in California?
Hmm.
Some of you heard this?
No.
Where are they? Whitney Glacier is one of them. Also the Bolam and the Hallam. All the glaciers on the north side of Shasta are actually growing. The way that the way that changes have occurred in the weather over the last 600 years, they've deposited more snow in that mountain than they've had in the past, and they're actually getting bigger. It's the only place for a long ways around that's happening. That's happening. So
You mean like
lucky
in
us.
Oregon, Washington too?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any others that are growing at this point.
Wow.
So it's just a weird jet stream thing that comes off the Pacific and comes around the side of Shasta on the north side. These glaciers are getting bigger, so slightly. Let's hope that continues. So parts of the glacier, this is taken from low on the Holland Glacier on Shasta. Tell me what you guys see here that we could figure out.
Looks like it's kind of broken up on the left.
Okay.
Like there's some activity there.
So this is a crevasse potentially, okay? How about this? What's happening here? There's ice and there's rock, and the rock that's feeding off of it. And down here you see some disturbances, okay? What's all this?
That's the rain.
That's the moraine, that's right, okay? So this is the moraine, the ablation zone comes up this way, and then somewhere between these two, it's gonna turn from ice to snow, and then you can see this is snow-covered crevasses here. This is the ablation zone. See how this is bare gravel and ice? And this is the accumulation zone because it's snow. So in both of those, again, there are crevasses, all right? So there are some other ones. There are some other hazards in glaciers. One of them is, if I can use my best German accent, is a Bergschrand. What's that? Anybody know what that is?
That's where it separates from the hillside.
Right.
The glacier separates from the.
I like to call it the mother crevasse. So it's the big one at the top. And often it's the big obstacle to get over when you're climbing in the Sierra. So it'll be the biggest one you find just before you get on the head wall. If it has rock on one side and snow on the other, often it can also be called a moat. It's usually very deep and pretty pervasive all the way across the slope. How about a serac? Anybody know what that is?
Hanging ice, isn't
It's a, yes, it is. It's a tower or block of a portion of the glacier where crevasses have crisscrossed, and they've created something that is unstable and unpredictable. And those are probably the most dangerous in terms of they can fall, crush you at any point if you're within range. And they exist in an area called an ice fall, which is a particularly chaotic part of the glacier. So where the crevasses are crisscrossing because the glacier is going through a steep section or a rounded corner, or it's particularly broken up, it'll create seracs, and that is what constitutes an ice fall. Otherwise, just general crevasses, they don't have a special zone for those. There's another really interesting and particularly dangerous feature on a glacier called a moulin. It's French for the word mill. Anyone ever heard of this? What is that?
Holes in the ice created by moving rivers on the ice.
That's right. So especially and only in the ablation zone, as far as I know, the glacier will be melting, and so the water will be running on the surface of the ice, and often it'll find its way, no surprise, into a crevasse. So it'll be little rivers or big ones, streams of water that run into a crevasse, and then what happens when they get into the crevasse? They continue tunneling and boring, and so that becomes an underground river, and it comes out some at the bottom. So if you slip on the ice and go down, you're not going to come out of one of those. So they're particularly dangerous. So watch out for those. Watch out for streams on the ice that go to no man's land. Okay,
Sorry.
there's a couple of features on the glacier that we want to discuss, created by shape. There's two words that I like to use together. One of them is concave, and the other one is convex. So concave would be a pocket, okay, a hole, okay, like a cave, right? So that would be a shape like a cup. And convex would be the reverse of that, something like a ball, okay? So in terms of a glacier, if I have a convex slope where the glacier is experiencing a steepening, okay, then it's going to be pulled apart. We call that tensile stress or tension. So anytime a glacier is going over a rise, over a cliff, over a bump, anything where it's steepening or being forced to be stretched, then that is what creates crevasses. And I always talk about doing this, and I forgot one more time. I was going to take a Snickers bar and show you how it's beautiful out of the package, and it's got that nice chocolate on top, right? I love chocolate, and I love candy. So if you pull it apart, the chocolate will break up into sections, just like a crevasse. But if you push it back together again, you can close them up. It'll still taste the same too. I've tried this. So one of these times I'll bring a Snickers bar and show you, but you can picture it. So in a convexity, the glacier is breaking up and steepening under tensile stress. And then often when it reaches the bottom of that, there's a scoop or a concavity where it's concave. And what do you think happens there?
Smushes back together.
That's right, because of compression. So those are really the only two forces that are on the glacier, tension and compression. So one of your goals is to find all of the zones in the glacier where it's being squeezed back together again rather than being pulled apart. We'll work on that as we go through the presentation. By the way, we're not going to talk about the pictures the whole time. We will actually build some stuff here tonight, and we'll go through using the gear too. If you have questions at any point, please speak up. Let's go ahead to the next one. So when you're on a glacier, you need to know a couple things. One of them is shift between where you want to go and where you are now. So if you have a goal of getting to an X destination, but you see a maze of ice falls and crevasses, you need to figure out how to link all the zones of compression to get there. So shift between those two, and make sure that you head out early when the glacier is most frozen, and late in the spring or early in the summer, essentially between May and July, which is the best time in North America to go on a glacier. That's when the snow bridges are the strongest. Memorize major terrain features, and even better, use wands or GPS tracks to keep track of where you're at. Because if the weather comes up and you experience a whiteout, that's one thing, but a whiteout on a glacier is another level of scary. It's white all around you with holes to fall into. So it's nice to be able to find your way back. And some people actually kind of draw bearings on a map. You could do that too. And keep track of your elevation and note at which elevation you make certain turns. So I have a little dynamic table coming up here next. Go ahead and go to that, Scott. Okay. So just to make it, I try not to get too complicated, but essentially there's all sorts of risk levels. So we got no risk, low risk, moderate, and high risk, okay? So this is a subjective determination. If you believe that the glacier has no risk, it's likely that it's going to be bare ice, free of snow, okay? Going up the scale will probably be something like you might normally climb on dense summer snow early in the morning or it's hard. Later in the day, the glacier risk level can go up because it's getting softer. And sometimes you're traveling maybe in winter or on a glacier that's heavily crevassed with lots of soft snow, and perhaps it's warm also, in which case you'd be at high risk. So depending on how you judge it, there's different strategies. For low risk, you might not even use a rope. For no risk. For low risk, you probably should rope up. Moderate, you should rope. For high risk, you should rope and make sure you have generous rescue coils, because it's likely you might need it. The spacing between climbers is about the same. It's recommended to be between 6 and 10 meters apart. So you'll note that on a 60-meter rope, you're going to have a lot of rope left over, which is good. You need enough rope to get back to your partner. That's what we call rescue coils. As far as gear to climb out of the crevasse, which are prusiks or cordelettes, if you're not going to use a rope, there's no point in putting those on. But I would carry them at low risk, consider pre-placing them at moderate risk, and definitely pre-place them at high risk. There's another thing we can do to keep ourselves safe, which is stopper knots. That's essentially an alpine butterfly tied every 5 to 10 meters on the rope. And that is kind of like a cork. When it hits the edge of the crevasse or any sort of a snow, it'll create friction or possibly even stop you from going in. So that's a strategy you can use. And I didn't put yes on any of these, but I would highly consider it under a high risk situation. And then some other things, you might still want to wear a harness even if you're not carrying a rope or not using a rope. This one, you may also, under low risk, even though it's bare and icy, you might also belay because it's going to be really hard to climb safely, especially if it's at any sort of an angle. In moderate risk, think about pre-placing prusiks or not as to whether you're going to have to put the rope out for technical climbing. So sometimes you'll tie it to the end of the rope and then do what's called a kiwi coil to come in all the way so that you're 6 to 10 meters apart. And if you have your prusiks pre-placed on the rope, it's going to be hard to move that rope in and out like you need. But when you get up here to high risk, just forget about that stuff. Just rope up, get the rescue coils, pre-place your prusiks, consider stopper knots, and keep your brain on the whole time while you're out there. It can happen to you. Any questions on this?
Wait, if you're gonna, with the prusiks,
Yeah,
maybe what's the difference if you just put them on? Maybe just put them on rather than,
that's a good question. So why even have different categories?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they can get in the way of moving the rope in and out. So if you need to lengthen the rope, you're going to do technical climbing before or after the glacier, they can get in the way. So that's one thing to consider. But if you think it's a high risk of a crevasse fall, then one of the best ways to rescue yourself and to operate that system is to have prusiks already on the rope. That's what I mean by pre-placed. So, or a sender. So they'll be placed on the rope right in front of you and then stowed in a pocket or wrapped or clipped to your harness. If you do fall in a crevasse and you haven't pre-placed those, then you're going to have to do it while you're hanging in the crevasse.
well, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
So-
why not just put them on no matter what? Just so you don't, I mean,
Just a convenience
For the climbing after.
yeah, convenience and time and fuss. So I haven't put them on the rope very often when I'm on glaciers, because maybe I'm cocky. But but if I feel like, wow, this is heavily crevassed, lots of snow, man, let's get totally ready. I'll put them on. I'll put on a chest harness, clip the rope through that, and spend a lot of time probing. So it's kind of a mixture between how much time you need to spend based against how much likelihood there is to the risk. So kind of like, when do you start roping up on a rock climb? Some people solo, other people are climbing in pinches on the same route. It all depends on your risk level and how much you're willing to take, how much you're willing to take on. So it's kind of a judgment call. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So whatever you do, just make sure that your team agrees with each other. Okay, let's head out to the next one, Scott. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few pictures from a climb on Rainier. This is the Tahoma Glacier on the west side of Rainier. This is a view from far away. So you can see, as a classic volcano glacier, that it accumulates up here in the crown of Rainier, and then goes through a series of ice falls, going through rocks and so on. So it's pretty broken through this steep section. And then it mellows out. There's a zone of compression here and a zone of compression there with a ridge line of ice falls here. And then it must go through some other sort of obstruction, because there's a lot of crevasses here with a zone of compression over on this side. Okay. And then it mellows out one more time and just goes on its merry way. So we'll take a look at these different ice falls as we go up the glacier, and we'll talk about how to navigate through them safely. So base camp, you want to be in a place where you're not going to get hit by seracs or rocks. So we chose to camp on the side of the mountain where we could dig in and view the glacier safely from a vantage point. This area right here is particularly violent because the glacier is actually falling off a cliff down into this huge gully. So even though this is a low part of the glacier and probably could be considered a zone of compression, linking the low areas, it's also, and much worse, it's a very dangerous place to be. So don't always go through all the low places. Look at one little interesting side note. When we climbed up this glacier, this wall right here, at that time, I think I was 37 or something like that. It had more snow. It had more winters, counting the dark bands. Every summer there's a band of dirt that kind of sips in, and then it snows again. So you see white, little stripe of black, white, little stripe of black. I counted those stripes, and the snow went all the way back to the early 70s before I was born. So that was kind of cool. Cool things you can see on the glacier. So the snow had been there a long time. So let's start at the bottom, the ablation zone. Typical Rainier day, it was foggy. This looks like a lot of gravel, but actually it's a lot of ice that is capped by gravel, okay? So it's just a glacier that's had all this rock that's fallen on top of it. Let's go to the next one. This is us looking down a crevasse in the ablation zone. So we climbed over a moraine, and sure enough, there's a big ugly right there. They're easy to find, but there can be just as deep as the others. And it's a really ugly place to be because it's just no rhyme or reason. I mean, huge boulders, tiny gravel, sand, rocks of all sorts, boulders perched up top, getting ready to fall on you. So it's a kind of a really dangerous place to climb through. So just get through there quickly and keep your wits about you. Continue on, and then there's the moulins too. So the first thing you come to is once you get closer to the fern line is some evidence that glaciers or that crevasses are underneath you. So you'll see cracks that'll come in from the sides and then won't be connected. So one of the most exciting things if you're your first days on the glaciers, you'll be walking along and you'll be looking at the route, and then you'll look to the side and notice that, wow, there's a nice crack that comes to right about where I'm at and then ends, and then there's apparently snow underneath my feet, and then look at that, it opens up again on the other side. That's your cue that you're standing on the snow bridge. So you'll see saggers and crackers. So this is a sagger right here. This is a crevasse. Can you tell this a little bit shady, dirty, low? Okay, this is a crevasse, that's a sagger. This is a cracker, so it's just got little cracks here and there. Could you walk across this safely? Maybe. You'd have to look. You might want to belay, but just realize obviously that yes, this is not a separate crevasse from this one. This is all one big crevasse that just happens to be in various stages of failure.
And it could be overhanging.
Yeah.
You see.
Oh, it almost always is. Yeah. Where is the crevasse in this picture? Kind of hard to tell. This is a rock. That's a rock. This is black, but that's actually a hole. Okay. So the crevasse is very hidden here. It fell, the roof fell in here, and then this is the rest of it here, going down this way. This whole sagging dark section is all snow bridge. So these last two pictures are actually on Shasta. This is off the Hopper. So this is not very high up. Okay, next is ice falls. This is back to Rainier. Here's what I was telling you about. This is 4 winters worth. So this is snow, summer, winter, summer, winter, summer. This serac here is sitting at what, like a 45 degrees. So it's ready to fall, as are all these up here. Various stages of falling apart. So it can be a very beautiful place, but just be aware that it could fall at any time. So I wouldn't stand or stop or eat lunch anywhere where there's debris, okay? On this particular day, when we were climbing on this ice fall in Rainier, we skirted below as far away as we could from the ice fall. And the next morning when we came back through there, because the weather shut us down for that day, we came back, we noted that one of those places we had passed through yesterday now had blocks of ice laying on it, so. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so like I said before, convexities and compression zones. So this is a nice picture because you see how bulgy this is right here? That's a big rock band or some sort of minor cliff that it's going over. And because it's doing that, it's just being spread. So that's a place where I would expect, and sure enough, there are crevasses. Here's another one here where they've actually crisscrossed and created a minor ice fall. These are very small seracs. And here's another one here. So our pathway would be to try to link all of these zones through this valley of sorts and come up through here, right by our flag right here. Just kind of keeping an eye on where the snow bridges apparently and again, if you come across a crevasse right in your path, your only choice is to either jump across it, climb down into it, or climb out the other side, or more commonly, do what's called an end run, which is to walk to one side or the other until the snow bridge is strong enough, and then come back and meet up with where you would have been had you been able to continue. So this is us heading from base camp down into the glacier. Obviously, very open, easy to detect crevasses. And this sort of, various holes in the snow like this is really typical of glaciers. In the books, it makes it seem as if you're just going along hunky-dory and all of a sudden 90 degrees, there's a wall like a cliff, and then on the other side it comes back up again 90 degrees and then continues on. Or if there's a bridge, it's something that's nicely formed and shapely. It's not like that. It's very messy. There's various snow bridges that have fallen down and plates of the glacier that have subsided. So as we look at some of these, you'll see that a snow bridge can be a whole roof that'll just fall, like this one right here. This is all a crevasse with a huge snow bridge roof that just fell in. And this one is a snow bridge in various stages of falling. So just avoid this whole area. We're gonna come down through here. We're gonna split the distance between this crevasse and that one. We're gonna walk through this zone, continue to probe, and at this point, we're gonna head up through this zone of compression right here between these two ice falls.
Are you roped together there, or just?
Yeah, see the rope right here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, continue on, Scott. So here's a further view of what's up ahead. So your travel patterns would be through here. You're gonna start crossing crevasses right here. So you're gonna probe, see evidence of a crevasse on both sides. Okay, so you're gonna probe, maybe belay, probe, maybe belay. Continue on past through here, probe, maybe belay, up through here. Now this is where it gets interesting at this point. So this is where you're gonna want to belay and probe carefully, but we're gonna have to try to get up through a ramp and then continue on. Here's a picture of a very typical snow bridge, really messy. You can see how it's overhanging. That's very common. Part of it's already fallen. This is former snow bridges that have fallen, and there's probably more air and crevasse below that. So very rarely can you see all the way to the bottom of the crevasse. What you're going to see is the last snow bridge that fell in. Okay, if you break through that snow bridge, there hopefully there's another one below it. But this was very typical. Old dirty snow falling in, and it's just kind of chaotic. This is not an ice fall. It's not a serac zone. This is just typical glacier travel. On Rainier, at least. So it requires a good teamwork. It's important to have a big team out there that knows what they're doing. Here's some route finding practice. I'll do some more tracing up the glacier. We'll start over here, Scott. So we're going to go down onto the glacier right about here. Another interesting story. The only time I've ever had a partner fall into a crevasse was right about here on this route. It was a marginal crevasse on the edge of the glacier where it's separated from the rock that's sliding by. I went across the bridge just fine. I stood on the other side, and was belaying him, and he fell in up to his armpits. It was exciting. And then he just got his axe and crawled back out again. So, no worries. But they can happen the moment you step onto the glacier. So, moving through here, this is a dangerous zone because see how the crevasses are stretched across it, and yet we're not traveling at 90 degrees to them. So that's an issue. That's a place to be careful. We're going to actually travel the same direction in parallel to them. So if one of us were to fall in, it could potentially just pull us both in instead of draping the rope over the crevasse edge. We're going to continue going up again, zone of compression, come around this way, come up right up on the ridge line if we can, up to the lowest part and to the summit. Another picture. If you can, I don't know if you can see this, but very faintly, there's a little bit of light on this dark, and that's actually our trail. This is our actual trail right here I'm tracing. Right there's our footsteps. We went right up through there. Any questions or comments? Okay. Okay. More route finding practice. End running. So if I were coming through this glacier and starting here, I could come through here. This might be a potential crevasse. See, it's open on that side and on this side. Okay, so we're going to come through probing, possibly belaying. Might jump over this one, or we might go over to the left. Come around this way. Probe, possibly belay. Probe, probe. Come up through here, over there. Just try to avoid the big nasties. Once again,
Wow.
here's the upper part of our zone, so we go through here, probe, probe, shift over to this side, split the difference between the cliff. Right here, we got to make another decision. I'm looking to get up on this ramp right here. So what I'm going to do is jump to the right, come up on this ramp, and this is the spot right up through here where I was able to count the winters on this cliff. Came up through this side, and it got a little better up here. Just kept probing and keeping our eyes open. On this particular climb, this was kind of heartbreaking. We actually came to a crevasse that was probably the birch run. It was so big and so deep that we couldn't get across it except for one very taunting snow bridge, which was there. It was literally about as wide as a car, and it was about this thin.
Oh,
And it was,
wow.
and it stretched about 10 feet, you know,
Oh.
the smallest part. I was like, and from there we could see the summit. I was like,
Man.
should we try it? My partner's like, are you crazy?
So what route
like-
was that on?
This is the West Tahoma Glacier. We didn't try it.
Wow.
And as I'm, probably what would have happened is might have fell when we tried to cross it, or this would be even worse. We made it across, then we came back,
Yeah.
it would be gone.
Yeah.
So then we're cut off from our camp.
Right.
Anyway, so sometimes there is no way through. That happens. Happened to me twice on this route. So anyway, pick a good time of year and climb smart. All right, more route finding practice. Let's do some more. So coming up through here, probe, possibly belay, probe, possibly belay. This crevasse here is connected to this one. This one is connected to that one. This one is connected to this one. Okay, so those are all snow bridges you're crossing. So snow bridge, snow bridge, snow bridge, snow bridge, snow bridge, snow bridge. Right up through there.
Is the probe the same kind of probe like you probe for bodies in the snow?
That's a great question. You can use your ice axe, but you could also go next to a trekking pole without a basket, or you could actually go to an avalanche probe, which is even longer, depending on how much time and extra equipment you want to bring.
What do you usually do?
Ice axe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're just feeling for emptiness?
Good. That's a good question.
Or-
Yeah, exactly. So when you press an ice axe to the snow, you're going to get consistent resistance. But then if it all of a sudden gets real easy, you've hit air. So
If it's less than the thickness of ice axe, it's kind of dicey, huh?
true. When we were on Shasta last week or week before last, I used a trekking pole without a basket at full length. And so that gave me, about this much probage.
Yeah.
So That's key. Just talk with your team about how you want to probe and what instrument you want to use. I did already talk about wanding. See, here we're traveling. The leaders got wands on their pack. They're basically bamboo sticks. You can go buy them at a home and garden store. They're real thin. They're about 3 feet tall with little surveyor's tape flags tied on top. And they're just like a caveman's waypoint, basically, okay? And when you put them in the glacier, stick them in, put a little mound of snow around them, and pack it down. That way that you'll be able to find them on the way back. And the goal is to place them no further than the rope length apart, so 200 feet. So even in a whiteout, you could stand at one wand, and if you had absolutely no clue where the next one was, you could have your partner out at the very end of the rope doing a big circle trying to find that wand, sweeping it, which would be not too smart in a glacier, but if that's what you came up with. That's as far apart as you ever want to put them. You could also put them, judging by what sort of distance you've got, so that you can always see one from the next. So that whenever your route takes turns, left or right, then if you stand at one wand, you can see where the next wand is. You go to that wand, you can see where the next wand is, etc. Kind of like breadcrumbs from the witch's house. Right?
And then how do you determine when to do wanding?
That's-
Every time you climb, when you see, got a forecast, which you can't usually predict on certain mountains. So
Yeah.
How often do you wand?
This glacier, we wandered a lot because there were so many crevasses we had to get around, and we wanted to not have to do the same work on the way back down. So it wasn't so much about navigating, it was just about making our travel efficient.
Yeah.
So I guess the more convoluted the route and or the more likely it is that you're gonna have low visibility on the return trip, the more you should wand. And I would also use a GPS if I had one. It'd be a good way to go.
Wouldn't GPS be better, or do you
Oh,
find GPSs don't work at certain temperatures?
GPS would be better, but wands don't lose batteries, so.
Right. Exactly.
So they'd both be good.
Yeah.
Wands an actual physical physical item.
The bad thing about wands is you might run out,
True.
and but the good thing about them is, they're right there,
Yeah.
and like they work really good. Like if it's starting, like usually, like it seems like it's starting to cloud up. Like, so you just might want to put a few in so
Yeah.
you could start your way down, and then like usually, like once you've made it a certain way down, like things become more, like the route's more broken in or something, and they're good.
They're trail markers for a glacier. So it's really
Kind
secure.
of like a corn, yeah.
Yeah. Wait, let's go
Out
on.
there on
So-
one of the Mount Shasta guides, he was telling me he'd been up 200 times and he always placed wands every time he went up Mount Shasta.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's what you need to do. So when you're going on a glacier, they're not always flat. Sometimes they're steep, so that can change the way that you climb. You may have to actually climb like you would on a rock climb, where you have the leader lead out and place protection to a point of safety, put in a belay, bring up the rest of the team. If your team consists of 3 or 4 people, that can be more complex. Here's a team that's climbing a somewhat steep glacier, and so it can be time consuming. Let's go on to the next one. So you need to think about how much rope you're going to bring, what sort of climbers, or not, how you're going to tie people in. So I have, I thought maybe I could use a whiteboard. It might help a little bit if this could be more clear. I don't know if it's going to be too complex, Scott. If you want to do a camera, let me go grab my markers. Okay. Let's give a run on camera here for a little bit. Okay. And this one is kind of high, so do you think I should kind of hold it up? Oh, look at that. Isn't that nice?
Nice.
Okay, let's do that. All right. So with a 60-meter rope, okay, we're going to draw this out. Okay, this is 60. like that marker. Let's pick a different one. If we have 3 climbers, okay, and we need to put them 10 meters apart, this would be the middle of the row, right? We're going to have a climber here, here, right? No, I'm sorry. We're gonna have a climber here, and here, and here, okay? So there's gonna be 10 meters between them, so that'll be 20. Then there'll be 40 meters left over. So that's a 60-meter rope, right? So this climber will take this 20 meters and coil it up and put it in their pack. And this climber will take these 20 meters and coil it up and put it in their pack. So you'll be climbing like this, okay? You'll have a team of 3, each with 10 meters between them and 20 meters of rescue coil on each end. This marker stays still. All right. If you have 4 of them, you should probably bring it down to 8 meters spacing. And that'll mean you're going to carry 18 on the ends. So typically a 60-meter rope is what you want to go with. And you want to have between 8 and 10 meters between you. Make sense? Okay. If you have a 30-meter rope, okay, which would be make it a little bit longer, and you break up into teams of a team of 2, the 2 of you are going to be 10 meters apart with 10 meters on each end. So that's just enough rescue coil for a 2-person team. So this person would coil up to 10 and put it in their pack, and the other person would coil up 10 and put it in their pack. And you travel with rope team 10 meters apart with 10 meters of rescue coil for each person. But there's an issue with 2-person team. What is it?
How are you gonna escape it?
Yeah, it's really hard to self-arrest, build the anchor, and pull your partner out at the same time. So that's why minimum 3 is a good, that's a good size for a rope team, and 4 is good too. So if you did put 3 people on a 30-meter rope, which isn't really recommended, but I have done it, you could only do that in good conscience if, oh man, I'm not doing very well with markers. I guess I need to get some new ones, guys. My apologies.
Just put the 2 people on the end.
So you'd have one guy in the middle. Okay. And you could travel, if you want to, I guess you could travel with 15 meters with no rescue coil whatsoever. Just make sure you have another team that travels with you. And if you did go with 10, you could have some wimpy little rescue coil on the end. You'd have 5 and 5, right? That's right, 20, 30. But that's not really enough for a rescue coil. So you could go down to 8, maybe. And then that would give you 22 on the ends. That'd give you 11. That might be adequate. You could do it that way, but it's getting really, really small at that point. So I would suggest if you take a 30-meter rope, put a 2-person team on it, and make sure that you have another group that's traveling with you on 60. How do you guys break the rope up? That's one of the things that, sorry Scott, I'll do one more thing. How do you break the rope up? So on a 3-person team, if you've got climber 1 here, climber 2 here, and climber 3 here, you can have this person hold an end of the rope, both ends of the rope. You'll go rescue coil back to climber number 1. Then you'll do from climber number 1 to climber number 2, where it ties in, and from climber number 3, then to climber number 3, and then back to climber number 2. So it forms a W. So each of these sections are equal, okay? And in a 60-meter rope, this would be 15, 15, 15, 15. And that would be enough. But what you should do is go up the line to right about here, okay? I'm sorry. Have these guys come up the line to right about here, a couple hand widths in, so that this is more like 20, and this is more like 10. And have number 3 tie in here, and number 1 tie in here. So that way you've got number 2 in the middle of the rope, 10 meters from number 1 to number 2, and 10 meters from number 2 to number 3. And number 1 has got 20 meters of rescue line. Number 3 has got 20 meters of rescue line. They take that line and they coil it up and put it in their pack. Or if they're tied in with the rescue coil, tied in with a Kiwi coil, they just loop it over their shoulder. I think next time I do this, I'm gonna make sure I have better markers. I apologize. Those of you who did this sequence, you remember doing that? When we break up in a 3-person team, it's a W. When you break up into a 2-person team, it's a Z. Okay? So this would be tie-in number 1. This would be tie-in number 2. There's enough line here to go all the way back to number 2 from number 1 and vice versa. So they take this line, coil it up, put it in their pack, take this line, coil it up, put it in their pack. You want to have no more than 10 meters here between the two. So that would be the idea. Pretty easy. That's a lot easier than counting out hand spans, I think. So that's what I prefer, is just have people grab ends and middles and just stretch the rope out between them. That way you know that you've got it evenly divided. And then feed yourself in so that you have plenty of rescue line. If you guys ever get a chance to take our Glacier Travel Crevasse Rescue course, we spend 2 days going over that stuff and all of the other elements. So it'll be a lot clearer when you do it for real with a real rope instead of watching someone draw on a whiteboard. Is there any questions about that that I can clear up? Okay. Clear as mud. I thought I'd give it a shot. Okay, how we doing? 7:56? Okay, almost done with the digital presentation. Let's go back, Scott, to the presentation itself. All right, so that was the spacing thing. How many climbers and what sort of rope. And the diameter is important too. Normally it'd be 8 millimeter, sometimes less. If you're going to do technical climbing before or after Glacier, you probably need to go up to somewhere closer to 9, which is kind of a standard minimum for single ropes nowadays. Like we said before on the continuum, are you going to put press hooks on the rope? Who's going to have the rescue gear? You don't want to have it all with one guy or gal. Are you going to use stopper knots? And so I'm going to go over some rescue gear a little bit here. But yeah, make sure that whatever you do, your team talks about beforehand, and everybody on the team can execute the rescue. It doesn't do you any good that you know how to do a glacier rescue. It only does your buddies good, right? So in a selfish way, and also in a good team way, make sure that everybody knows how to rescue each other, okay? Traveling efficiently, there's a couple strategies. One of them is to step over, jump over crevasses, or to end run them, which I described already as just going around to where the snow bridge is adequate enough to cross. If you do have to cross on a snow bridge that you're unsure of, then you should put in an anchor of some sort, which could be a boot axe belay, it could be a picket, it could be ice screws connected together, depending on how much time you have. And then belay the first climber across that snow bridge while he or she's probing until they get to the other side. When they get to the other side, then they'll set up another anchor and belay the rest of the team across it's important that as the team travels that they maintain appropriate tension. Why is that? There's got a rope stretched out between them. All they're doing is traveling with their ice axis. If somebody falls into a crevasse, what happens if there's a lot of slack in the rope?
It's gonna be a big trip.
There's shock load then. So it's less safe for a team to travel with slack. The person who's falling will have enough time to build up speed before they're checked. And then when the rope comes tight, it'll be an unpleasant experience for the rest of the team. So it really is a safety thing to keep what I call gentle tension between the climbers. Not tight, not neglectful, just gentle, gentle tension. So a couple items. How easy is it to switch back to camera?
Easy.
Pretty easy, okay. Let's turn on the lights and switch back to camera and let's go through here a little bit. So dynamic rope, this is pretty fat for glacier travel. But I brought it because it'll do the process tonight. This is over 9 millimeters for sure. This is probably a 9.6 or 8, okay? So normally you take something that's 8 millimeter. This would be a 6 millimeter cordelette. So it's a little bit bigger than this and a little bit smaller than that. So just take a look at your rope, make sure it's dynamic, and it's around 8 millimeters. I didn't bring an ice axe tonight, but Gregor can maybe grab one off the wall, or someone will go. When that shows up, I'll show it to you. This is what we call a snow picket. It can be driven in vertically, or it can be buried horizontally in a dead man configuration. Great. So that's part of your protection tools. This is an ice screw. They're hollow aluminum screws that, no surprise, that you screw into the snow and then the core comes out. And they're very strong if they're put in correctly into good ice that can hold an amazing amount of load. Conversely, if they're put in incorrectly into bad ice, they can be totally worthless. So you want to carry, for every person who's on the glacier, the recommendation is to have one each of all of these items: an ice screw, a picket, and a mountain axe. So any of these three can be used as anchor components. Okay. Also, you want to have what's called runners. So this is a single runner. It is 2 feet. It's 2 feet long. I like the really thin type for glacier travel. Okay. It's about, for a normal, for average person, it's about this big. Okay. So a double, something you should also have, and that would be, if a single is 2 feet, how big do you think a double is? 4. Yeah, good math. Right, so here's the double, 4 feet, right? It can be doubled over on you.
You have 2 wire gates on it.
Wire gates, you should have 2 to 4 of those. Yeah. And this is a nice one because it has a snag-free nose. It's about standard size. This would be a full-size wire gate. Okay, that's more usable with gloves, and I would prefer it. Some of the wire gates sold nowadays are really too impractical to use on a glacier, like this one. This is the lightest. Well, this is the lightest one in the world, I think, according to Camp. It's 22 ounces. It is tiny and would be very frustrating to work with gloves. Plus, it has a standard snag type nose, which is frustrating. So, there's different types of wire gates. So just choose appropriately. As far as lockers go, you'll want 2 to 4 of those. That is locking carabiners. So this is the type we always recommend for all things mountaineering, climbing, and ice climbing and glacier travel. This is a pear-shaped D round stock with the manual gate. Why is that all important? Well, when it's on your harness, it's the right shape. This gate doesn't get locked up, doesn't require buttons or fancy code words or anything to open up, okay, or magnetism. So it can be field maintained and you can use it with gloves. It's got a snag-free nose, so it's a key lock system. It's round, so the Munter hitch can float around this part of the carabiner. And it's wide because it's pear-shaped to also, again, allow the Munter hitch to move through. And it doesn't have any disadvantages over other carabiners. So this would be a good type to get that size or possibly even bigger.
Is the attaché, it's
Yeah.
not as round, is it not as preferable as that one?
This is the attaché, this is an older model. When I say round, I'm talking about the shape of the metal here. That's preferable for the Munter hitch to flip around it.
Okay, but it could be stamped to reduce weight, like the new attaché, how it kind of channeled,
Yeah, probably could be.
it'd still be all
Just
right.
as long as it doesn't have an I-beam or square cross section.
Okay.
The way that you know that it's Munter hitch compatible is there's actually a little code that affixes itself to titles of carabiner sometimes, and you'll see it as HMS. That's some German word that means Munter hitch compatible, HMS. So if it says HMS compatible, that means it's built to make it easy for the Munter hitch to flip around as it does. So this is an HMS compatible pear-shaped D manual wire gate locker.
So you don't want those little noses, those little snags, because your rope won't move over them, they'll get
It's
caught.
just, I mean, it's less of an issue on a glacier because you're not lead climbing and, hanging out and clipping and stuff, but it is annoying when you're trying to move through awkward spaces with gloves. I always prefer to have a snag-free nose if I can. And so a key lock system is one of the many different types of systems that you could get that where whatever you're trying to put in your carabiner won't get stuck there. What else did we say? A cordelette. So what is a cordelette? It is, in my preference, rock climbing, we often use 6 millimeter, but if you're going to step foot on a glacier, I wouldn't take anything bigger than 5, anything. Prusik cordelette slings. But it's about, 12 to 20 feet of 5 or 6 millimeter cord tied with a double fisherman's or a grapevine knot with at least 3-inch tails. What the heck do you use this for? Well, anchoring. You can use it for getting out of a crevasse. You could use it for your leg loop. Certainly got enough length for that to be Prusik on the rope, so you can climb out. Or anything else that you need a section of cord like this for. You could cut it. Okay, so it's just a really useful tool for all things climbing. So when I'm getting ready to climb, what I would typically do is carry this with me, but use a double and a single for my waist and my foot muscle. So this one is the double. So that's why on the list it has both of these. And this is just kind of, a little bit opinionated, but this is about exactly the right size for a foot Prusik. And this is about exactly the right size for a waist Prusik, okay? And depending on how I decide to affix this to the rope, it should be really useful, versatile equipment that I already own that I can use for glacier travel. So I don't have to build anything special that's only useful for that one thing, like a Texas Prusik system, what have you. As far as attaching the waist and the foot Prusik to the rope, you've got a lot of options. You can tie a Prusik knot itself. You could use the Klemheist knot. You can also use mechanical devices. One that I'm a fan of, although it's sold as an emergency ascender, is the $20 Petzl tip lock, which is very innovative, no moving parts ascender. How this works, you have a section of rope. Okay, this is your lifeline hanging in the crevasse. Okay, this is you. As this is weighted, it cams the rope between the carabiner and these neat little teeth on this side. So if you had 2 of these, okay, one to your waist and one to your foot. Even if you didn't pre-place them, they could be easily affixed. And then you go whoop, whoop, and climb out of the crevasse really quickly, okay? They're $20, they're super lightweight, they don't require tying a knot, and they will fit on any size rope.
What was it called?
It's called a Tiblock, Tibloc. I'm sure Gregor will sell them to you. If he doesn't already have them. I also carry them just for general climbing, because I haven't had to do a full-blown rescue, but I have had to ascend the rope a couple times to help people out. And having this on my harness is a really fast way to get to them. So I pull it out, you know, if I can even use it without a locker, stick it on the rope, clip it on, clip it to me, I can get going right away without having to fuss with the pressing. So those are nice to have. There's also full-on ascenders, you know, Jumars, they take to Denali. Yeah, those will work too. And there's other versions of this that are actually somewhere between a Jumar and a Tiblock. One of them is called Rope Man. Okay, that you look at Petzl and Wild Country, they'll have all sorts of versions of this kind of stuff. Okay, did we cover everything? Prusik, cordelette, carabiners, runners, ice screw, picket, ice axes, ropes. Yeah, that's the list. We can go back to the presentation, Scott. Any questions about gear?
You use the two, so the runners use one of the singles for the waist. So I'm familiar with the foot, so your waist, that's in addition to your own harness.
Yeah.
You would hook that up along with your feet. I haven't pictured that before.
Yeah.
So.
So I probably should have brought a harness tonight. I mean, I could pull one off the wall.
I got a harness.
See ya. Let's just try to do without just real quick. So
Yeah.
what would happen is, this is an end. Okay. So I'm tied in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so this is my safety lines and my team.
Yeah.
But if I were to fall into a crevasse, okay, I'd be hanging in the crevasse. So what I need to do is find a way to climb the rope out of the crevasse, right? So in that case, then I would want a waist Prusik, which would go from here, either actually tied to the rope or on a mechanical advantage system. And that would be also affixed to my harness on a separate locker. And then below that, I would have a foot Prusik.
Right.
So that I'd be able to do feet, I'd be able to waist, lean back, bring my feet up, stand up in that, move my waist up, lean back, move my feet up, stand up in that, and then just keep on inching and inching up and up and up and up the rope, alternating between my waist Prusik and my foot Prusik.
Okay.
And
Attached to your, so it's attached to your harness.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then when I say pre-placing them, they would be here on the rope.
Right.
Foot would be here. Usually I like it on my left in a pocket.
Uh-huh.
And then my waist, come over here, clip to my harness or something.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, it's clipped to a locker right here. So
Okay. You only do 1 foot or 2?
just one.
Yeah.
That's me. I mean, some people build a 2-foot Texas Prusik system
Right.
that they have affixed to the rope and with all these knots and adjustments and things on it. So, all right, Scott, I did a whoop-de-doo on you. Let's go back to the presentation again. Can you go back to present? All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, now we're getting into crevasse rescue. What do we got? 812. Okay, good. So essentially, there's some basic steps. The first thing is when somebody falls, you got to stop it. That's job number one, right? Otherwise, there's no point in discussing it any further. When the fall has been arrested, you're going to have 1 or 2 climbers in the snow in an aggressive A-frame position, being pulled, you know, trying to be pulled into the crevasse by the weight of their buddy. While one person holds the weight of the climber, somebody else, the other guy or gal on the rope, has to go build an anchor and get that rope affixed to the anchor. So that's where build the anchor and transfer the load comes about. So if you're the only rescuer, you have to hold the self-arrest and build an anchor and clip it to the rope with at the same time. So that's really tough. Can be done, but So once you've built the anchor and transferred the load, then one of the people, or if you're the only one, needs to go down to the crevasse edge on belay and assess the situation. Figure out what are we going to do to get the unfortunate partner out of the crevasse. So stop the fall, figure out who's going to hold the fall and who's going to build the anchor, build that anchor, attach it to the rope, and then go assess the situation. Let's go to the next one. So essentially there are only 4 options for rescue. One of them is that the person in the crevasse can climb the rope. If that's what is possible, that's what you want to do. Can you think of reasons why that's our best option?
It's quickest, fast.
Quick, right?
Less risky. You don't want to.
Yeah, you're not risking yourself, another person in your team.
Right? You've already built the anchor. Okay, so you don't have to make any changes. Also, it keeps them warm. Okay, which if they're hanging out in a refrigerator or vice down there, they're going to get cold. You know. So if you can, you should always allow them to climb the rope. You can help them over the lip. You could try to give them an assistance by dropping rescue coil down to them and building another system on top of it if you wish, but let them climb the rope in either only or in addition to whatever other help you can provide. If they cannot climb the rope for whatever reason, then there's 2 other fairly easy solutions, both of which involve transferring the system to a Munter hitch. One is for them to climb out with their tools or their screws or however they can climb out, and you just belay them. Conversely, there's also an option for them to be lowered to a lower snow bridge so they can walk out or climb out. Okay, so you can either bring the rope up or send the rope back down in the crevasse. If they can't climb out, they can't climb the rope out, they can't climb out, and they can't be lowered and walk out, then your only option really is to haul them. And that's where the crevasse rescue thing comes in. There's a number of systems that you can build. Some are better than others. The only one my goal tonight is just to show you the 3-to-1. If we have more time and it's clear that I won't create confusion by going into more complexity, then we'll go to another level. But if you're going to step foot in a glacier, you should at least know how to build a 3-to-1 backwards and forwards. That'll give you the baseline chance of pulling somebody out on a 3-person team. So, questions? Is that clear? Any questions about that? Okay, so now we're going to go to camera. We won't go back to presentation ever again. I promise, Scott. This is the 3-to-1. It's also referred to as a Z-drag. This would be the anchor. That's the person. I'll show you right here on this table. So you guys can go ahead and stand up and run over. Just make sure that the camera can still see where whoever's viewing online are 1 or 2 people that are watching us.
Oh, I see, that's what the camera's for, all right.
Yeah, this is live streaming right now.
All
For our
right.
members in other parts of the world, all across the globe. I'm going to move all of this gear out of the way. Okay, I didn't get to talk about a couple of things. One of them is pulleys. This is a steel bearing pulley, kind of heavy, but very nice with russet tending ears. This would be a cheaper, lighter weight version of the nylon wheel, and they go up and down the spectrum from there. So if you guys want to feel the difference in light and space, you can see. You get what you pay for, but okay. So also there is this specialized item which we've picked up recently. I've been testing with the club. This is an integrated pulley locker. So it's got a little pulley in here, so you don't need to have both. Here's our system we're going to have. I do think I probably do want to, could someone bring me a chair or a small table on this side? I'm going to get this gear off here. Yeah. Thank you. Bring that over here too, Larry. Okay. Okay, I'm going to get all this stuff off the table. How's it look, Steve? All right. So in our scenario here, thank you, Larry, we're going to this is going to be our master point on our anchor. So just to save table space, thanks. I did not equalize that and all that. So just picture this as a snow surface. This is our master point on our anchor. This is the cravats. How convenient, right? Okay. You're going to be the fallen person, okay? So what's happening initially is that, Larry, you want to come over here? This is going to be really realistic. I want you to hold this,
Yeah.
okay? So you're going to be having them in self-rest, okay? That's just symbolic of you, okay? All right, so the first thing that needs to happen is we've got to affix this anchor to the rope. So since it's under extreme tension, how are we going to do that?
Use one of those pressing.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to need to put some sort of friction hitch on here and then affix it to the master point, okay? So let's start with something that's pretty easy and that you may have with you. Something that's round shaped, okay? Like a leg loop or a cordelette or what have you. And it's all one piece, okay? You guys give me just a little bit, give me just a little bit of tension on that. Okay, so the prusik knot. You start with the knot, you go around 3 times. When it's really long like this, it's kind of what's going on. Okay, and then you're going to need to make sure that the coils are correctly ordered, which is they need to come. This bar needs to come from the outside. All of the coils need to be together, descending or ascending, I guess, into the center. Okay, so this is our prusik knot. This is an improved prusik, the 3-wrap prusik. You should spend a little bit of time making sure it's actually going to grip, okay? Not too much time. So now we're going to tie the most complicated knot in mountaineering, which is the PMMO, which stands for the Prusik Munter Mule Overhand. So this is what you need to practice. Okay, so the first thing is now done, which is prusik. The next item we're going to do is the munter. So we're going to clip that through. You guys can undo your tension a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to flip this over on top of itself, or yes, like this, and then do what I call flip and clip. Okay, lock it off. You note this is, I'm using double strands, so it looks a little bit more confusing, but it's the same thing as if you were going to do it with a single strand. Prusik, munter. Next thing is the mule. The mule is a tie-off knot to make sure the munter doesn't move. So I form a loop on this side where the length of cord is going behind and is going to come across in the front. So it'll tie them off. I pull a bite through there, make sure it's nice and snug up against the munter, and then pull out enough length so that I can do the overhand, which locks off the mule. Okay. Why the heck am I doing all these complicated knots? Well, I want to have the ability to affix this to the anchor, to fix the anchor to the rope, but also I want the ability to come out of this system, because there are situations in which this one-way ratcheting progress capture system will have to be backed off. Like if we pull up really hard and he gets stuck up against the lip and we need to lower him back down again, there's no way to do that unless we undo this and lower him back. Okay, so this is the best way to do it. It's not the only way, but it's the best. So Larry, at this point, we'd say, come off, Larry, come off. Okay, oh, it looks like the anchor is holding him just fine. Okay, however, we're not done, because one little wimpy friction hitch does not an anchor make. okay? We need to put a hard knot in, which would be figure 8 on a bite. We're gonna use the same bite on our cordelette, so as to speak, okay? And this is going to be where we put this in. So now we've stopped the fall, decided who's gonna build the anchor. Larry did self-arrest, I built the anchor. He came off, it carried the load just fine, and we tied it up. So now we've stabilized the situation. It's now time to go down to the end and check out what's happening. So we'll go down here on a prusik and we'll talk to our buddy. Can he climb out? No. Can he climb the crevasse out? No. Can he be lowered? No. Have to be hauled. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So we'll just go straight to the most difficult one. I'll come back to the other scenarios if we have time. So at this stage, we need to build a Z, okay? So the rope that's coming up from him is probably, go ahead and lay that down on the table. It's probably deeply entrenched in snow. So if I can, I'm gonna have Larry's ice axe over here. Come on down with your ice axe, and we're gonna pad the edge if we can, okay? To prevent it from cutting in even further, if that's even possible. So this is just a representation of that idea. So in order to build a Z-drag, this is gonna capture our progress as it comes up from the crevasse, but we need to actually build a mechanical advantage system so that it won't just be whatever wimpy force I control pulling up his weight with the pack. So we need to multiply that force by using the pulley system. I'll build it first in the most kind of general way without any specialized equipment. So we would make this our first turn. And then we would go over to this way. And what we're going to need to do is, there's our Z. We're going to need to put another carabiner here, okay? Let's say it's just a straight up wire gate, which will be connected to a prusik here, okay? So in order to do that, there's another item you should probably have with you. 4 to 5 millimeter. This is prusik is an overused word in play, okay? It's a knot, it's an item, and it's an action, okay? So you can tie your prusik in a prusik and then prusik up rope, okay? Those are all correct uses of this thing. So this is a prusik. I will now tie it in a prusik, okay? I should say it's a prusik length piece of cord. So here's our prusik again. A little bit easier to tie when it's shorter and not so fat. Oh, the wonderful world of climbing terminology. Okay. Yeah, you can see why I prefer to use a tib lock or something. This takes too much time. Hurry up, my leg is broken. Okay. Okay. So what we've got here is the simplest 3-to-1 known to man. Okay, this is when we pull on this, disregarding all the friction in the system. Okay, 3 times as much rope is going to move through this part as it will be moving here. So we'll be pulling 1/3 of the weight. Okay, so it's just kind of keep it real simple in math terms. That's what this is doing for us. It would be nice if I had a prusik here too, so that I wouldn't have to use just my brute strength, although formidable. I could use this to clip to my harness and then kind of move that up and down the haul line as need be, and that really makes it a lot easier. Sometimes, or often rather, this system has so much friction and isn't as efficient or as capable as you might think. And you might have to literally like crawl up the glacier, you know, and so you're gonna need all of your legs and arms. So it'd be nice if this would be clipped into me while I do that, while I'm making the haul. What can we do to improve this system? Pulleys, that's right. Why?
That's friction.
Right. And you know, you go to the shipyards and you see blocks and tackles, they don't use carabiners to do that. They have nice little wheels on both ends. So we're gonna take a cue from those boys and we're gonna put a pulley in here instead. Now, I really hope that you get a chance to haul a live person out on one of these systems someday, because it's really illuminating about how much tension and power there is
I
involved
got
in
a
this.
question, like, if you only had one pulley, is it more efficient to use it up here than down there?
Yes, there's more rope is gonna run through this way.
Right.
Okay, I believe. So there's a pulley there. How about here? Can we do anything with this one? Good, yeah, good. Let's, this is variety, let's use this thing. Yeah. Okay, great. So now we've reduced the friction in the system by quite a lot. Okay, let's go ahead and move the system, try to make it do what it's supposed to do. So I need someone to anchor this. I need you to give me actual little bit of tension there. Okay, so I'm gonna go down, I'm gonna start hauling right here. And as we do that, we're gonna get a gap here. And so what needs to happen is this capture system needs to be maintained by either the Prusik automatically or by a person. We're gonna keep hauling and go ahead and let rope out, but give me tension still, just so we can get this to come up. Okay, somewhere along this system, we're gonna get locked out right here, okay? So then what's gonna happen is we need to set this. Can you see, Alex? Set this, and so now go ahead and keep full tension on it again. So what happens is this system all becomes slack behind the progress capture knot. So we move it out again, reset, and now we're hauling again. Haul, Larry, you want to maintain that? Good, good. Keep going. Should be coming through like this. There we go. We're gonna get locked out again. You're gonna set brakes, basically. Okay, great. You're gonna more, and do it again.
So you got one guy doing pulling, the other guy is making sure the rope's removed.
Yeah. It's not very efficient, however, so we want to find a way to manage this so that we don't have to waste a person on this menial task,
Right.
and rather have Larry and I both hauling. So let's problem solve that. What can we do to make this work for us so that it doesn't have to be maintained by a person?
Use a pulley that stops it.
Okay, right. So this one presumably has ears, these little nubs that come out, okay? So that could possibly tend it. I'm gonna go ahead and just pull
Let me
this.
ask you a dumb question. Why do you even need this?
This,
That's the braking system. I mean, I can see the need for this one, but why that?
That captures it.
it prevents it from sliding back down again. So all the rope that I pull in, if I didn't have that, I have to keep it on, there was no way I could keep it on tension and then slide to this side. So it's kind of a ratchet.
So the whistle stop. So if all these guys were to pass out or lightning strikes them,
Stop, I like that.
then this will stop everything. Goes.
Good. Yes. Okay. Great question. So let's go through some easy solutions. One of them is to use another commonly owned device, which is the belay device. Okay. So one thing we can do is install a belay device here that tends the Prusik. Okay. Oops. Get in there. Again, I'm a fan of using tools you'll already have on you or that you already own, you know, if possible. So now as we pull this up, yeah, go ahead and give me some tension there. It's going to create.
Yeah,
Gap
it
is
works. Yeah.
Right. So that's one. Okay. That's a good solution. Let's look at a few other things we can do, okay? Instead of tying an actual Prusik here on the progress capture system, we could actually use a different device or method. And if we didn't use a cordelette, that we wouldn't have to double it up. It might be easier to tie all these knots and faster. So again, going back to the Tiblock or some sort of device that is easy to install and requires less maintenance, I guess. If we used a Tiblock here,
Do you always use a locker with a Tiblock?
you're supposed to, but you can do it without. Okay. If we use something like that, and let's say we used, let's do a double. Okay. We could get away without having any specialized gear except for that, but we're already carrying these with us. So we could do it this way. So that's our Prusik, right? Here's the Munter flip and clip. Here's the mule, which will tie off, lock off rather than Munter. Okay. And I made a boo-boo. I didn't put this at the very end, but it's just enough hopefully that we can get an overhand out of it. If not, then I can tie a half hitch and put a carabiner to it. But yeah, that's really, really tight. So I might just put a carabiner through it anyway, just to make sure it doesn't come out. Thank you. So that system is a little simpler. And let's go ahead and haul. So it's going to tend really easily. I mean, it hardly requires any tension at all. And then as soon as we let go, it'll lock up really well. It'll lock every time.
Would you give any consideration to the throw, the length you have in here, so
Yeah.
that when you're hauling up, you're not taking one step back every single time? So if you have 6 inches versus a foot or something like that.
You want it to be small enough that you aren't losing more than a foot, but you're still going to have to tie 3 knots here. So this is a good length here. But you don't want them excessively long or really stubby, because then they just frustrating. The moment you start moving the line, it's already up against the pulley. You need a little bit of time here to make sure it's
Oh,
not
so
gonna
it
do
doesn't lock up. You just need enough so it release, right?
Yeah, we just need enough so that it'll both lock up and release. So there's one option. So we actually have plenty of time now.
Isn't that the best option? I mean,
It's one of them. I mean, of course,
you're gonna have to have a dedicated person for sure that way.
yeah, this is an important part of the 3-1 that you should do your best to make self-monitoring.
Yeah.
You don't want to have a person doing this. If you were there's another way you could do it, which I think is, if without using specialized tools, which I also would advocate, and that would be to have these Prusiks that you have with you all the time anyway, to use these anytime you want to affix anything to the rope, and not use something full length like this, which takes time. You saw all of that length I was trying to pull through. So you could put one of these here, and for your progress capture system, you could also put one of these here. And we do the same thing as the Tiblock is doing, just wouldn't be a Tiblock. And you could clip a locker to it, and then whatever length you needed on the other end of that, you just go ahead and make it so. And it's just so much faster than tying up a full length one. Let's take the occasion to take this apart under tension. Okay, so go ahead and give it to me. Ooh, yeah, that's good. So this is why it's cool, because you take out the lock, and now what's going to happen is I'm going to pull the mule out, and it'll pop the Munter. Okay, and at that point, I need to be ready. Okay, now, if I let go, this is Munter in full brake, right? If I bring it out this way, it's gonna roll over the carabiner and it's gonna start coming off. So that's how I can release the progress capture system. And when it's where I want it, I can put the Munter back into brake, put the mule back on, put the overhand on top of the mule. Oops, I don't want to feed that all the way through. And I can continue hauling or doing whatever I need to do. So it's releasable under load. That's what's key about it. If I just put in a single here or some other short item and did not tie it up, this is a much simpler method. However, I have no way of coming off this system, no way of allowing it to release line unless I have a knife. So that is one solution. If you don't know how to tie the PMMO, just go ahead and hook it up like this. And if you ever come to a situation where you have to release the line, one solution is just to cut it. But it's not as elegant. You don't need stop lines from me. It's okay. All right. So
if you cut it, wouldn't it just go?
oh yeah, it would.
So you would have to be.
Yeah, you'd have to have this under tension. You'd have to have some other system ready to go to do it right after that. So, you know, that's why it's not really preferable. But just showing you a couple different ways to make your life easy, okay? All right, so back to what we were talking about. Let's single this out so that it's not as bulky. Oh, you know what? That's not going to happen. It's been under tension recently. Oh, there we go. So much better. So if you had a foot prosthetic or a waist prosthetic that was actually round cord like this, and you could tie figure eight on a bite on one end. Okay. And you could use your little prosthetic to tie it quickly to the rubber. Let's take this all apart because this wouldn't be here. So we're going back to affix the anchor to the rope. So once again, that's the prosthetic. This would be the Munter, right? Clip. This would be the mule to capture these strands. Pull this all out just so that you wouldn't want to have this much length. I didn't really have a short cord to show you. And then the overhand would be on top of that. Go ahead and give us some tension on there. So, all right. So once again, pulling this out, pull out the overhand. Now I'm ready to pop the mule out of place so that the Munter becomes active. And the Munter is ready to roll out. Keep going. If I don't want that, then I can lock it back up again. I'm tying this on purpose multiple times for you so you can see what it is. Okay, so that's the mule, and then the overhand. It's a great knot. This is what you should practice when you're watching movies.
And it's called, the knot is called mule.
It's called the Prusik Munter Mule Overhand, the PMMO. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our other scenarios where the person is going to climb out or they're going to be lowered. Okay. So let's take all this, and I'm gonna take this off. And I'm gonna go ahead and just take take that whole system off. I'm gonna go ahead and use a double for this here. For the demo. Okay. This time, I'm gonna get the nut out of the way. So this is you and the crevasse. This is our faithful self-arrestor here. And I'm the anchor guy at this point. Okay. So bring it back over this way just a little bit. Okay. So I'm putting on my Prusik. I'm going to put on my Munter next. All right. I'm going to put in the mule afterward. Yeah, it's okay. Because I've got plenty of length here. And then overhand after that. Okay, go ahead and give me a little bit of tension on that. Let go, self-arrestor. Oh, yeah, okay. There we go. I want to make sure that happens. Now, just as a review, what do I do next? This is not adequate. I want to put a hard knot. Yeah. So this would be figure 8 on a bite, right? That is an ugly figure 8 on a bite.
You basically got a 4mm cord holding all the way.
Yeah, exactly. It's okay for static, I guess. Okay, now we're good. Okay, so we've stopped the fall, coordinated the rescue, we built an anchor and transferred the load. Now we're gonna go down. Yeah, I'm gonna go down to the end. How you doing?
Warm.
Good. Say he wants to climb out, okay? So, I can come back this way. Okay, he wants to climb out, all right? Or maybe he wants to lower. All right, same solution. We put a Munter hitch right here, okay? Take this hard knot out, put it in the Munter. Okay, so go ahead and start climbing. So as he's climbing up, we're capturing his progress here. And when he gets to the edge, give him a hand, and he'll come on back up out of the crevasse. All right, and let's say that you got stuck at the lip and you couldn't get over the lips. Go ahead and give me tension on there. Okay, so here's one of these situations, right, where I can't go back down unless I release. So he's stuck at the lip, all right, fine. And he changed his mind, he wants to be lowered out of the crevasse now and he would walk out. So if we start, if he starts going down, he's gonna end up with this locking off, okay? So what we need to do is, while we're holding this on, while he's holding that on tension, okay, we're gonna lower this until all the weight comes on this, and then we're gonna move this up. And then we're gonna put this back together again, so that it'll still hold him, or we could just forget about this system if we wish. And allow him to lower. I move this up. And remember, I'm just taking a shortcut. This is all tied back up again, okay? Oh, wait, you want to come back up again, you say? Okay.
That's why it's so warm.
That's it. Okay, come on back up. He comes back up, flips over, it goes back into belay position. So it's really only if you're already locked out in this scenario, and you have to go back down, then you have to release this, just temporarily, so you can get the weight on here. So that's the solution.
So if you were a single rescuer at top, you would have to lock off the motor before putting tension or releasing tension on this other system, right?
Yeah, and what do you think you could do to lock off the motor?
The MM lock.
That's right. You could tie a mule, But the thing is that, so
That
this
would
would,
like-
this would be under tension, you take it off tension, it would come onto this system, and then you readjust it, and then let this drive the lower end. And then just make this, just keep it as a progress capture, but don't let it get jammed out, because then you have to do it again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the mule is a great knot, you can use it to tie off belays, or anything, you can use it to tie off any knot that's gonna move. All right, guys, that's probably pretty good for tonight as far as presentation goes. I've done a lot of talking. So where are your questions or gaps? Any that you want to go through again? Or
If you didn't remember the PA or the munter, you just use a belay device if you wanted to at that point.
at this point?
Yeah,
Yeah, you
the
could.
lower.
Yeah, you can use a blade device. The modern blade devices we have the standard configurations where this is the brake side, this is the climber side. But there's also the auto lock system, auto belay, you could use if you wish here. Where, let's do it this way. Where the climber's rope goes into the top and then jams on itself, so it's kind of a worry-free system, at least as far as ascending goes. So they would come up, and all you have to do is pull the slack out, and if they fell, it just locks itself off. So
Pretty awesome.
this is what we use for belaying seconds, from the anchor and top rope and top belay situations. The only issue with this is it's a little bit tricky to get undone under load. You have to basically put something right here, like a single, and a nice narrow single, and thread it through there. Or you could use a
Oh,
carabiner,
maybe not.
maybe,
Maybe not.
and you pull it up, and then it starts slipping about there, and then you could lock it off again.
Ah.
But this is not a recommended way to belay, to lower somebody. It's just a way to release tension on the system, so.
Like if you want to release it into your capture.
Right. So, okay, you take tension off, which is why the Munter hitch is better.
Yeah.
Because it's really an amazing knot in that while one rope is traveling up, the other one is traveling down. And so one of them is a lower and the other one is a raise. And it's reversible, So you can belay on this strand, then you can belay on the other strand. Or you can lower on one strand, you can lower on the other strand. So it goes back and forth fluidly, and that's why it's a good solution for those two, which is climbing out of the crevasse and being lowered into the crevasse. You really only have to do three things at this spot right here. You either tie a hard knot in, let them climb out, or you put in a Munter for the lower climb out of the crevasse situation, or you put a pulley here for a haul, and then build the rest of the system as needed. So.
I have one question. What's that little hole? What do they actually use it for?
Just what I showed you, which is to release the tension in the
Like,
lock.
so you stick something in there,
Right. If you can get something through there, then you can pull this up and put it back into a more parallel strand configuration. And that's when the friction will lessen. The rope will start sliding through on its own. Yeah. So if you're going to buy one belay device, it sounds like rock climbing class. This would be the A type to get that has this extra loop on the top here. They're great. Really versatile. So what do you think, guys? Did we cover everything? Is there other stuff to
Yeah.
discuss?
Do you have that other belay device for the smaller ropes?
No, I didn't bring that tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, this would be in that configuration, this would not be the best.
Yeah.
For an 8mm rope, the aperture is too large here, this opening.
They have a slightly smaller model, right?
They have smaller models for ropes that are smaller than like 8.6, 8.4, which we probably wouldn't be using on a glacier, right?
Mhm.
Those are the sizes we will climb on. 7.7, 8. So,
So if you're going down to help the guy that's hanging and you're using this, you're just sliding it this way and walking and you slip, when you just slip right.
yeah, that's,
So maybe one of these would be better.
yeah, a prusik will hold both directions. So if I was going down to him and that was where the danger was chiefly, then I guess I need to put it this way, you know?
It would just always be that way. So if you slipped,
Yeah,
it would catch.
it would catch, and then I could come back up.
Hold it.
Yeah, that is the problem with this, is it's only one directional. So that's why it slides so great one way and grabs the other. Prusiks don't slide or grab great either way. So they're just- or you could say they grab both ways, and you don't get this easy, slide grab thing. Just, the tougher it's gripped on the rope, it's not going anywhere. So you have to loosen it before it's gonna be convinced to move. But they are, they're kind of where you start. So, if I was to get some really important glacier gear, and also rock climbing gear, I think this is a key thing. One of those. I think if you like what I took to tip lock, that's a great thing to have. The double, the single, couple lockers, cordelettes, your belay device, all of this stuff can be useful for you. And maybe a pulley might be worth having, something lightweight like this perhaps. Not so good, I mean,
Maybe a radio so you can communicate.
yeah. Nice.
If somebody's climbing up themselves though, they wouldn't have a belay on
You mean climbing the rope?
Like with the senders.
them. If
That's what you're
somebody's
saying.
ascending out,
Well, because their waist prusik is attached to their harness, they are safe.
right. But I mean, you wouldn't use a munter to pull them back up.
Oh, you
because
couldn't, no.
it would be under
Because
tension.
they would be under tension, yeah. And there's a bunch of nuances in the systems we build that we could go into, but that's why we have a whole 2 days to teach this course. And I'm just giving you this 10,000 foot look at it in 2 hours tonight. So please do take a course from us and also read the book or come out and climb on a glacier sometime.
Which book is that?
Any,
Oh.
Now Down Here into the Hills. Where's my little
Right here.
book, Scott? This is the one I would recommend to you. Glacier Mountaineer, by Andy Tyson and Mike Clement. If you like comics and don't want to read boring textbooks, this is the one to have. So if you can be entertained and informed at the same time. So, yeah.
It's built for fifth grade.
Kids can read it too.
Yeah, it's one of the best climbing books in my library. It's awesome. And it's spot on too. It's technically correct and entertaining to read. So let's wrap it up with that, guys. It's 9, getting close to 9, and we're gonna get rolling home. So thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.